We are at Northeastern State University at SkasdiCon. SkasdiCon is the first Indigenous Comic-Con in Cherokee Nation. So we were so proud to bring this together. We chose the name Skasdi. It's a colloquial term in Cherokee communities that means fierce, exciting, ready for adventure, ready for fights, which really plays into all of the themes of all of our favorite fandoms. All of those things come together with all of our Indigenous talent. We have 27 vendors of artists, comic books, everything you could want, fandom mixed with Indigenous culture and art. We have a cosplay contest. We also have panels. Roy Boney and Lee Francis Jr. are going to be talking about working with Marvel. And we also have a panel about how to do Indigenous cosplay.
We're going to be paneling. It'll be Paige, me, and then Desba. She's from the Dine Nation. And so we're going to be talking about the do's and don'ts of Indigenous cosplay. Both Desba and Paige have done Indigenous cosplay before. I have not done Indigenous inspired cosplay yet, but I know a lot about various different tribes and have been making plans to make my own Chalagi inspired cosplay in the future.
And that's another thing we want to talk about in our panel too, is that not all Indigenous cosplay has to be Indigenous inspired. We also think it's important for Indigenous nerds to just cosplay. By being an Indigenous person and cosplaying, you're being visible, you're being active in your hobbies, and you are adding to that demographic. So we get to kind of show both sides of that coin today, which is super fun. This is one of my Cherokee-inspired outfits. It is 17th century inspired, so it's to replicate the type of clothing that would be worn by women at that time, but it is Princess Mononoke from Studio Ghibli. She wears a fur cape, she has a blue skirt, she has shoes that look almost exactly like this, and I was like, this is so easy to translate into our cultural visual language, and it was a really cool project for me to do, just to learn about our culture, the type of clothing that we would wear, the historical pieces that we would wear, and figure out ways to make that into this character.
In recent years, because of the Marvel movies, superheroes have gotten really mainstream, and there's a lot of Native fans in that world. There's a lot of Indigenous, people like to watch these. They like to dress up like these characters, but also it kind of coincides with a lot of media lately. Natives have been getting a lot more representation in TV, like with Reservation Dogs, and movies like with the Predator movie Prey. And so it's showing that, we've been fans for a long time, but now let's tell our own stories. So these kind of events are bringing together fans, and a lot of these fans do make their own content. There are a lot of artists and writers here that are Native, and so maybe there might be some projects that come out of this too. People meet each other and go on and do their own comics and other stories.
When people ask what kind of art I make, I generally just say I make weird stuff. It's applicable to me today because I generally incorporate pop culture iconography with my culture, my Cherokee or Otoe, Missouri culture. So a lot of what you'll see of mine today incorporates Cherokee language because it translates to a visual media very well. So much of the artwork that I made regarding comic books came from a frustration of growing up as a Native comic book fan. While there was some representation, it was incredibly, frustratingly stereotypical. And so to me, I wanted to kind of take real iconic superheroes and just make them Native, because that should just be something that's part of their personality, not the one thing about them that's so focused on. And so that's where I really wanted to kind of normalize Native superheroes. I think it's kind of my stance with my work.
We weren't entirely sure if it would be annual, but because of the popularity of people's excitement of it coming and the turnout that we've had today, I do believe that it's going to become an annual event.